Hi, thank you for your post. Windows Vista and 7 setup log files are located in different locations on the hard disk. The Panther directory is one of them. If you perform an upgrade installation of Windows, the Panther folder can easily fill up multiple gigabytes. Renaming it and deleting it shows no negative side effects. C:/Windows Panther directory is used during installation of Windows. Everything's fine. Okay, for those of you curious about it, it's actually part of a project called Project Panther. It's for spying on you. You have to be very careful about it. Don't touch it. If you go on a forum and ask a question that says, "Hi, thank you for your post," this is a bot answer. If you're a human using this, stop doing that. If you've been told to always do it because it's part of your job, they want you to look like a bot. Get over it. The directory is contained in the following locations, or these are the directory pathways. C:/$Windows dot tilde BT/sources/Panther. It can have other names. For down level phase of Windows and or for Preinstallation Environment phase and or for Rollback phase to put it back the way it was during updates, upgrades, or just installs. Windows Panther folder is for online configuration phase or first boot phase, blah, blah, blah. Brain. Windows welcome phase, or any other part of doing the setup for Windows, on or offline mode. Windows.old will also be used for OS upgrade and may have a Panther folder temporarily. A rollback of undoing any of these stages may fail if any of the required files that are being temporarily stored there, just in case something breaks during an update, was located in a Panther folder, or any other folder, by the way. Now, most of that is through Major Geeks, and it explains to you, yeah, it's a temporary folder, but if you haven't done any updates recently and the thing's running fine, you can go ahead and delete the stuff. The robot answers that keep showing up, if you're anything like me, if you see, "Hi, thank you for your post," that is never a good sign that you're dealing with a human. That kind of individual always responds a certain way because they're trying to stay in good graces and pump up their karma, or I don't know, maybe they're getting Robux. This goes back to Windows Vista, a new setup service engine that was first shipped in Windows Vista. Somebody randomly decided to use a placeholder directory name to use for everything, and they randomly typed out Panther for some reason. If you know exactly who did this, and if they've come out of the closet, it'd be hilarious to actually interview them. So, why did you think Panther? I don't know. Why are you holding me hostage? Anyway, the path became baked into a lot of code in the process, and instead of doing a seek and replace to change it from Panther to something else like backup, which was, by the way, overused. That's why they don't use the word backup much anymore. It actually became kind of a rule. You couldn't safely change anything because it was all dependent on this randomly selected directory name, Panther. This has happened before in other operating systems and other software sets. Now, a mildly amusing article existed on social.technet.microsoft.com/forums/windows/long string of characters, and then ending in, "Why is the Panther folder called Panther?" And it was for the Windows 7 IT Pro Install Sub Forum. And of course, this was going to be something that's frivolous and fun and shot dead. Can't get a copy of it. I don't know where to get an archive of it. If any of you have an old archive or backup, somehow, people don't back up anything anymore, do they? I'd love to have a copy of it. Somebody found something mildly amusing on Microsoft.com and it got destroyed. And if you're one of these corporate pukes that keeps deleting cool stuff, stop. Okay, anyway. But what is this an example? Are there any other examples of this? Yes, there are. Mac OS was notorious for having really goofy directory names or default names for files or even extensions. And some of them became embedded, and people would come up with a technical sounding reason for a directory structure or an extension like LOL or WTF or GFD or BBQ or OMG. You know, there's actually stuff like that you find in coding. These are placeholder locations. Linux people are more open about just saying, yeah, I typed this in frustration. One of the more famous ones apparently was somebody who just smacked the keyboard to get a bunch of letters and numbers on the screen by using a random number generator, and it spelled out something goofy sounding if you were to translate it to, I don't know, Croatian or Croatian to English or something. But the point is, this happens a lot. So if you were wondering what it was, the Panther directory is one of the directories that's just a random name someone picked, and we may never know why. And that bugs me. And of course, the humorous answer would have been more fun and more interesting. Now, because this is on almost every operating system from Windows Vista up, and has no use after install, and the only references to it would be in the install scripts for installing the operating system from either a thumb drive or a DVD or CD-ROM or whatever, it might be fun to entertain yourself by telling people, look for the Panther directory, keep an eye on it, there's something suspicious going on, and then start a rumor about it. I was thinking of doing that as an intro, but I can't hold a straight face when I do that kind of stuff, because I just don't do that kind of stuff. But I think this would be the kind of thing that would start a massive rumor-mongering campaign, and it could be entertaining to mess with the noobs, because, you know, that's what this is good for. The next thing is, can you delete this safely? Now, this is stated, you know, thank you for your post, that you can, but the proper procedure for this is you make a backup copy of your entire operating system, because it's in the operating system directory. If you're not willing to do that first step, like literally Xeroxing your computer, don't fucking do anything to any folders unless you get a definitive, yes, that's just a leftover that was failed to be erased. It's not failed to be erased, it's leftover so they can do rollbacks. After a certain point, the rollbacks won't work, so it's not needed, and it should clean itself up and be part of system cleanup. But here's the problem. That means that every piece of software in your computer would have to have an end stage where it would write a file that says installation of Service Pack 1 is done, or installation of Visual Basic Patch is done, or C++ or C#. And guess what? Every single one of these pieces of software is notorious for not finishing their projects cleanly, and they tacitly just ignore the fact that they never really finished because they never finished properly. There's the nightmare of trying to update Windows 7 or any operating system and relying on each update to be aware of whether or not it finished installing itself, which is not an existential crisis for a computer. It should be able to do that. The fact that, and this is literally a fact, almost every one of you are using a computer, whether it's Mac OS, Windows, it doesn't matter, Linux, all of them have that ending stage where you go through and check, are the files where they're supposed to be? Number one. Number two, are there any files where they're not supposed to be? Next, were there any error messages? And it should have stages of all the files are where they're supposed to be and they match with what I've installed. It should say finished. Virtually every piece of software like this, written by every person who's supposed to know what they're doing, skips this step that's quite literally drilled into your head if you're writing software. Not by the teacher at a college, but by the fact that you need to figure out whether you're done or not too. Blind writing stuff to a hard drive is actually how most of the software is done. It's an embarrassment about how we write software as a species. I mean, I spent yesterday dealing with a piece of software called Cam Studio. It's a lot like OBS or Open Broadcast Software. And I found that all of the installs make presumptions that they're not capable of breaking something during an install, and the only ones that don't make these assumptions are copies that are portable because they have to make sure the files are where they are or they won't start. Being paranoid about your software needing to be completely installed properly with no errors is something that only good programmers do anymore. And none of them do it when it comes to operating system installs, because they're all based on, you know, just throw shit at the drive and see what happens. That's just the way it is. So this being a folder named Panther that could easily just contain log file, it's a variation on a log file where you have a completion of a project, then you give it a unique ID number like KB something for knowledge base. That's usually the name. Yes, again, that's an example of KB became knowledge base because it was from the knowledge base place on Microsoft Corporation for patches, and they just named it after the knowledge base article that caused it. It's a lot like RFI or RFC being used as the default name for a file because it's referencing what it's doing. And it can have like knowledge base OU812 and say this knowledge base, this KB file has been installed from this date to this date completely with no errors, and then clean it itself up and just have a code in there that says actual, like let's say a checksum code for all the files combined together, for instance, that would only be there if it installed it, and it would have to include the version number. That's something you'd want to leave behind, but you could erase. But it would indicate to the program it's finished installing, and any other program coming along could check on that. Most programs don't even bother with that stage. They throw log files everywhere, they have errors, they say they're fully installed, and then they're not. And then when you install the update or patches, it says this was never installed or it doesn't exist, or it just lies to you. This is the state of the union as far as computers. I'm sorry. But anyway, having a little bit of whimsy, a directory named Panther is kind of cute. I've seen all sorts of them. Some software will use a temporary or permanent folder named after the author of the program. The name of the program is more common, or it'll be stored with something else. Like one guy said, I named it after my cat. I mean, I've seen that like a dozen times. So this gives you an idea of, yeah, someone at Microsoft Corporation was just into big cats, or maybe they just saw the word Panther and used it. So yeah, again, mildly amusing, why is Panther folder called Panther is nowhere in there, but yeah, this has been there since Windows Vista. Go look up Windows Vista, it's been a long time. Thanks for watching, have a good day, good luck with that, bye.